Welcome to Read and Rise, a place where stories teach, heal, and inspire. If you're learning English and I want to improve through real stories with subtitles, you're in the right place. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you never miss a new story. Now sit back, relax, and let this story help you grow, one word at a time. My name is Julia. I am 29 years old and work as a nurse in a small town hospital. For most of my life, I have lived quietly, helping others, and dreaming of finding true love like in the movies. I never imagined that one decision would change everything. It all started one rainy evening. I had just finished my shift and was walking home when I saw a man sitting alone at the bus stop. He looked lost, tired, and soaked from the rain. I almost walked past him, but something in his eyes made me stop. "Are you all right?" I asked. He looked up, startled. "I think I missed the last bus," he said, with a gentle voice. "I'm not from around here." I offered him my umbrella. "You can borrow this," I said. He smiled, a warm, kind smile. He introduced himself as Daniel. He had just moved to town for work and didn't know anyone. Something about him felt safe, familiar even, though we had never met before. That night I couldn't stop thinking about him. The next morning, I found him waiting near the hospital. He had come to return my umbrella. We talked for hours. Then days passed, and we talked more. In just a few weeks, we became very close. He was charming, respectful, and always listened. He said he was a software developer, working remotely. I believed him. I never checked. Why would I? He was everything I thought I wanted. One evening, under the stars, he asked me to marry him. "I've never felt this way before," he said. "You make me feel alive again." It was sudden. Everyone said it was too fast. My friends warned me. My mother begged me to wait, but I said yes. I believed in love. I believed in Daniel. We got married in a quiet ceremony. No guests from his side, just me and my family. He said his parents had passed away, no siblings, no close friends. I didn't ask too many questions. I didn't want to ruin the magic, but magic doesn't last forever. At first, life with Daniel felt like a dream. He was polite, loving, and always made time for me. He would make breakfast every Sunday, leave little notes around the house, and always said, "You make me a better man." We moved into a small apartment on the edge of town. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. I was happy, or at least I believed I was. But slowly, small things began to feel strange. Daniel never talked about his past. I would ask simple questions like where he went to school or what his childhood was like, and he would change the subject. Once, I asked if I could see photos of him when he was young. He just smiled and said, "They all burned in a house fire." I wanted to believe him, but that same answer came up more than once. A house fire had destroyed his graduation certificate. A house fire had taken his childhood dog. Even his old ID, gone in a house fire. I started to wonder, was there really a fire? Then one evening, I saw him on his laptop. I walked behind him quietly, just wanting to hug him. But when he noticed me, he quickly closed the screen and smiled nervously. "Just some work stuff," he said. It was the first time he looked guilty. Later that night, when he was asleep, curiosity got the better of me. I tried to open his laptop. It was password protected. I asked him the next day what the password was. He laughed and said, "It's just boring codes. You'd be bored." But my heart wasn't laughing. Something felt off. One afternoon, I was doing laundry when I found a receipt in his jacket pocket from a hotel in another city. I hadn't known he had gone anywhere recently. The date was just 3 days ago. I stared at it, confused. He had told me he was working from home that day. Why would he lie? I tried to call the hotel, but they wouldn't give me any information. "We respect our guests' privacy," they said. I put the receipt back where I found it and said nothing. But in my heart, a question had begun to grow. One I didn't want to ask, but couldn't ignore. Who is Daniel, really? A week after I found the hotel receipt, I decided to visit my friend Mia. She had been my best friend since high school. We hadn't talked much lately, mostly because I'd been busy with Daniel, and if I'm honest, I had been avoiding her. She was one of the people who told me not to marry him so quickly. When I arrived at her place, Mia looked surprised. "Julia," she said, hugging me. "It's been a while." We sat on her porch with coffee and small talk, but soon she leaned closer and asked, "Is everything okay?" I hesitated. "Do you think I made a mistake?" I whispered. She looked at me gently. "I think you rushed into something with someone you barely knew. That doesn't mean it's a mistake, but it means you should be careful." That word hit me hard. Careful. Then she added, "I know someone who might be able to help." Mia worked part-time with a woman named Claire, who used Mott to be a private investigator. "She's not official anymore," Mia explained, "but she's smart. If anyone can help you figure out who Daniel really is, it's her." I felt torn. Part of me didn't want to know. What if I found something terrible? What if Daniel wasn't who I thought he was? But deep inside, I knew the truth mattered more than comfort. So a few days later, I met Claire at a small cafe. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed and quiet. I handed her what little I had, a photo of Daniel, the hotel receipt, and the name of his supposed job. She studied everything calmly, then said, "I'll see what I can find." That night, I came home to Daniel, cooking pasta and dancing in the kitchen. He looked so normal, so loving. "Where have you been?" he asked. "Just catching up with Mia," I replied. He smiled and kissed my cheek. "Glad you still have time for your friends." But something in his smile felt forced. Or maybe I was just seeing things differently now. I watched him closely as we ate. Every laugh, every word, it felt like a mask. And I realized something chilling. I didn't trust my own husband. 3 days later, Claire called me. Her voice was calm but serious. "Julia," she said, "we need to talk. I found something." I agreed to meet her at the same cafe. My hands were shaking as I stirred my coffee. When she sat down, she didn't waste time. "Daniel's name is not Daniel," she began. My heart stopped. "His real name is Lucas D. Rowan. He changed his name 5 years ago. He's not a software developer. He used to work in finance, in a big city. But then, something happened." She handed me a printed article from an old news site. The headline read, "Bank Fraud Investigation Targets, Rising Star Lucas Rowan." I stared at the words. My eyes burned. I didn't want to believe it. But there it was. He had been accused of stealing money from clients, falsifying reports, and disappearing before the investigation was complete. "But he wasn't arrested?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Claire shook her head. "No, there wasn't enough evidence at the time. He vanished, changed his identity, moved to a new town, started over." My body felt numb. I remembered the house fire story. So many lies, the missing photos, the hotel receipt. It all began to make sense. "He's a runner," Claire said. "When things get hard, he disappears." I drove home in silence that night. The wind outside howled like a warning. When I walked in, Daniel, or should I say Lucas, was on the couch, watching a movie. He looked up and smiled. "Hayden, babe. You okay?" I nodded. "Just tired." But my mind was racing. Was I in danger? Was he still doing illegal things? Or had he truly changed? That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about the man beside me. The man I had married. The man I thought I loved. Was it still love? If everything I knew was a lie? The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my coffee. I had barely touched it. Daniel was humming as he packed his things for a work meeting. I watched him, my heart heavy. Should I confront him? Should I ask who he really was? Just as he kissed me goodbye, I asked softly, "Have you ever used another name before?" He froze for a second. Just a second. But I noticed it. Then he smiled. "What kind of question is that?" I shrugged, trying to sound casual. "I don't know, just curious. You've always been a little mysterious." He laughed it off, but his voice had lost its warmth. "Of course not. I've always been me." After he left, I called Claire. "What do I do now?" I asked her. Her answer was firm. "Don't confront him yet. If he feels cornered, he might run. Or worse." Those words scared me more than anything. Over the next few days, I pretended nothing had changed, but I watched everything. His habits, his phone, calls, the way he locked his laptop when I entered the room. One night, when he was taking a shower, his phone lit up with a message. I glanced at it. "Transfer done. Call me when it's clear." My chest tightened. What transfer? Clear from what? I took a photo of the message and sent it to Claire. An hour later, she called. "Julia, I think he's involved in something, again. Possibly money laundering. You need to be careful." I looked over at Daniel, who was now sitting next to me, towel around his shoulders, smiling, acting like everything was fine. But I knew the truth now. I had married a man running from his past and possibly repeating it. I smiled back at him. "Want some tea?" "Sure," he said. And as I stood in the kitchen, boiling water, I made a silent promise to myself. I will find out everything. I won't be his next victim. The next morning, Daniel left early for another business trip. He said it was just for the day, but I knew better now. I waited until his car was out of sight, then rushed into the bedroom and opened the drawer where he kept his laptop. Locked, as always. But today, something was different. Tucked beneath a pile of socks was a small black USB drive. No label, no markings. My fingers trembled as I held it. What secrets could be inside? I didn't plug it into my laptop right away. I called Claire first. "I found a USB," I whispered. "Should I check it?" "Bring it to me," she said without hesitation. "Let me scan it first. If he's into anything illegal, we need to be smart." I drove to her office downtown. She plugged the USB into her protected system. For a while, the screen showed nothing but folder names. Logs, clients, routes, New York. Then she opened a spreadsheet. My blood ran cold. Names, numbers, coded accounts, dozens of entries, hidden transfers, foreign banks, alias names, fake businesses. Some entries were marked cleared, others were tagged waiting. This was not just some hobby or one-time thing. "This is organized," Claire said. "He's part of a larger operation. Julia, this isn't just a man with a secret. This is a criminal network." I stared at the screen, frozen. Had he used me? Was our marriage just a cover? A way to seem normal? I wanted to scream. I wanted to cry. But more than anything, I wanted answers. Can we trace where this came from? I asked. Claire nodded. Give me time. I took the USB back home, placed it exactly where I found it, and sat on the couch like nothing had happened. Hours later, Daniel returned. He kissed my cheek and smiled. Miss me? I nodded. Always. And that night, as he slept beside me, I stared into the darkness. My husband was not just a liar, he was a danger, and I was living in his shadow. It was nearly midnight when I heard it. A knock at the door. Soft. Measured. Not urgent, but deliberate. Daniel was already asleep. I carefully got out of bed and tiptoed to the living room. My heart pounded as I peeked through the peephole. A man stood outside wearing a dark coat. I had never seen him before. I didn't open the door. Who is it? I called through the wood. He didn't respond. He simply slid something under the door and walked away without a word. I waited until he was gone, then picked it up. It was a small envelope, unmarked, sealed. Inside was a single photo. Daniel, standing with two men. All three of them wore suits and were laughing in front of a luxury car. On the back of the photo, written in red ink, "Do you really know who you married?" My hands shook. I knew I couldn't keep this to myself. The next morning, I met Claire again. She looked at the photo and frowned. "I recognize one of these men," she said. "That's Marco DeVille. He's known to run shell companies and fake investment schemes. If Daniel is connected to him, this goes deeper than we thought." I nodded slowly. Someone wanted me to see this. "Or scare you," Claire added. "Either way, it's a message." The question was, from whom? That evening I tried to act normal, again. Daniel was making dinner, humming a song I no longer recognized. Every moment with him now felt like walking on glass. One wrong move, and everything could shatter. He asked, "You've been quiet lately. Everything all right?" I smiled. "Just tired from work." He nodded, but I could feel him, watching me, suspicious, alert. When I went to bed, I kept the photo hidden inside my pillowcase. And that night, for the first time, I locked the bedroom door from the inside. 2 days passed with no sign of the man in the coat. Daniel seemed calmer, maybe even happier. He was starting to believe everything was back to normal. He kissed me more often. He cooked my favorite meals. He joked about us planning a vacation, but I didn't laugh. That morning, while he was in the shower, his phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it for a second. Then it stopped. 10 seconds later, it rang again. I picked it up. A deep voice said, "Tell him we're not waiting much longer. The money was due last week." Before I could speak, the call ended. I stood there frozen, heart pounding. What money? Who was that? Daniel came out moments later, towel on his shoulders. He glanced at the phone. "Someone call?" I lied. "Just a missed number, no name." He nodded, but his eyes stayed on me longer than usual, watching, measuring. Later that day, I called Claire. "He's in trouble," I whispered. "Someone is pressuring him." Claire responded quickly. "If they're threatening him, they might start watching you too. Be careful." That evening, I pretended everything was fine. I laughed at Daniel's stories. I hugged him, tightly. And in the middle of that fake warmth, he whispered something chilling into my ear. "You'd never keep secrets from me, right?" I froze. I pulled away slowly, forcing a smile. Of course not. But I could feel it. His voice wasn't teasing. It was a warning. That night I didn't sleep again. I kept the bedroom door locked. I kept my phone close. And when Daniel finally fell into a deep sleep, I went to the balcony with a blanket and sat there alone, staring into the cold night, asking myself, am I still his wife? Or now his prisoner? The next morning I met Claire in a quiet parking lot behind a library. She looked more tense than usual. I traced the phone call, she said. The number's linked to a known enforcer, someone who collects debts for criminal groups. Whoever Daniel's dealing with, they're serious. I nodded, heart racing. So what do I do? Claire hesitated. We can go to the police, but without enough proof, it'll be your word against his. And if he finds out, he might vanish. Or worse. I thought for a long time. Then, I said something I never imagined I would. Can you help me trap him? Claire blinked. What do you mean? I want him to confess, I said. I want to know everything. What he's done, who he works with, and why he chose me. Claire sighed. You're playing with fire, Julia. I know, I whispered. But I need the truth. I can't live like this anymore. She agreed to help. We would record our conversations. Claire gave me a small recording device, hidden inside a necklace. I wore it under my shirt. That evening, I made Daniel's favorite meal. I lit candles. I poured wine. I played the role of the perfect wife. Halfway through dinner, I asked, if you had a chance to do everything over again, would you? He looked at me for a moment, chewing slowly. That's a strange question. Just wondering, I said. He took a sip of wine, then answered, no one gets a clean slate. Not really. We just learn how to wear better masks. My stomach twisted. I leaned in. And your mask? Is it still working? He paused, his eyes locking onto mine. Are you asking me something, Julia? I smiled faintly. Only if you're ready to answer. He leaned back. You always were smarter than you looked. For a brief second, the warmth in his eyes disappeared. It was replaced by something cold, calculating, and in that moment, I knew. He was testing me too. The necklace was recording everything. Daniel poured himself another glass of wine, and the tension in the room thickened like fog. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. You know, he said slowly, there's something beautiful about forgetting. Most people carry their guilt like luggage. I burned mine a long time ago. I watched him carefully. You mean, when you changed your name? He didn't flinch. Instead, he chuckled. So you've been doing your homework. I stayed quiet. He stood up, walked to the window, and stared outside. The man you think you married died years ago. Lucas Rowan. That was just a name on a business card. A name people cursed, hated. I let him go. So what are you now? I asked. Daniel? A new man? Or just better at lying? He turned back toward me. For the first time, there was no smile. No charm. I survived, he said. That's what I am. I didn't hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. They all knew the risks. They were greedy. I just beat them at their own game. And me? I asked, voice trembling. Was I part of the game? He walked closer. Too close. I could feel the tension in his breath. You were the only real thing in my life. That's what makes this hard. Hard? I whispered. He touched my face gently. Because if I find out you've betrayed me, I won't forgive you. I nodded slowly, forcing tears to stay in. I haven't. I swear. But inside I knew the clock was ticking. That night I sent the recording to Claire using a secure app. I wrote just one sentence. He confessed. What do I do now? She responded within seconds. Leave the house tomorrow, quietly. We'll handle the rest. I lay awake, pretending to sleep, beside the man I now feared more than anyone. Tomorrow would be my last morning as his wife, if I made it out. I woke up before sunrise. Daniel was still asleep, his arm resting lightly across my waist. For a moment, I hesitated. Part of me still wished it was all a dream, that the man I had loved wasn't a ghost hiding behind lies. But I knew the truth now. And the truth doesn't go away. I gently moved his arm, careful not to wake him. Every movement felt like it took hours. My breath caught with every creak of the floor. I had packed a small bag the night before and hidden it inside the laundry basket. I left a note on the table. It said only, "I'm sorry. No explanations, no accusations. Just 2 words." I slipped outside into the cold morning air and got into Claire's car, which had been parked a few houses down. She didn't speak as we drove, just kept her eyes on the road. My hands trembled in my lap. "You did good," she finally said. "The recording is enough. I've already sent it to the authorities. Will they arrest him?" "They're watching him now," Claire replied. "They want to catch him in action. The money transfers, the contacts. You gave them everything they needed." I nodded slowly, still unable to believe it was over. But it wasn't. Hours later, I got a text from an unknown number. "You're braver than I thought. Goodbye, Julia." I showed it to Claire. Her jaw tightened. "He knows." I was taken to a safe location, a small rental apartment under a different name. I turned off all my social media, changed my number, and informed my workplace that I needed time off. I kept checking the news. For days, nothing. Then finally, the headline came. Lucas Rowan arrested in multi-million-dollar fraud case. Wife's secret recording leads to takedown. I stared at the screen, emotions crashing all at once. Grief, anger, relief. He had been caught. But I wasn't celebrating. I wasn't smiling. I was still trying to understand how love had turned into fear, how trust had become a weapon, and how a stranger became the most dangerous man in my life. 6 months have passed since the day Daniel, or Lucas, was arrested. I've moved to another city, a quieter one. Different streets, different people, a different version of myself. I go by my middle name now, Marie, a name no one here questions. Sometimes I still wake up thinking I'm back in that apartment with him. Sometimes I check over my shoulder when I walk alone. Healing, I've learned, isn't a straight line. The trial was long. I testified behind closed doors. My recording became the core evidence. Prosecutor said, without me, they wouldn't have been able to prove half of what he'd done. His sentence? 15 years in federal prison. No parole for the first 10. He never looked at me during the hearing. The last time I saw him, he was being led away in handcuffs. But before they took him, he glanced back and said, "You really never knew me." And maybe that was true. But I've stopped blaming myself. I've started volunteering at a local women's shelter, helping others escape their own shadows. Telling them that it's not weakness to walk away, that love should never be something you survive. One morning I received a letter. No return address. Inside, only one sentence. "You deserved better. I hope you find it." I burned the letter. And then I stepped outside, took a deep breath, and smiled at the world waiting for me. Because I'm not the woman I was before. I'm stronger now, wiser. And though my story started with a lie, it ends with freedom. And maybe one day love will find me again, the right kind this time. But until then, I'm finally at peace.